My name is Minna Greenberg, and I'm the president of the Bergen County League of Women Voters. And we welcome the audience, and we certainly welcome the candidates. And we're very pleased to be able to present to the voting public the candidates for their vote. The League is a nonpartisan political organization which encourages informed and active participation in government, works to increase understanding of major policy issues, and influences public policy through education and advocacy. What that means is we study issues, we vote on them amongst ourselves, and then we lobby. What we don't do, ever, is support candidates. We bring the candidates before you to hear them, to think, to ask questions of them, and to make up your mind whom you think deserves your vote. We want to thank the Jewish community, they're our co-sponsors, the Jewish Community Relations Council and the Urban League of Bergen County of Young Professionals for their help in publicizing this debate. I do want to thank the Bergen County Technical High School because they have been so generous with their time. We want to thank the principal, Mr. Tankard, his secretary, Mrs. Pelaya, and dear, dear Mr. Miller, who has been so helpful to us. I was asked to explain that the candidates are seated where they are for optimum audio and visual, I guess to put it in my simple terms, so you can see them because the lights are right there, the microphones won't have feedback, and that's about the story. We have a rule. The rule is the moderator must come from outside the voting district, and we are so grateful to Marlene Sincaglia from Berkeley Heights, who is going to moderate this evening's forum. And without further ado, Marlene.
I would also at this time like to introduce our timekeepers for this evening, Brietta Savoy and Eileen Gallagher. And I will explain their role as we begin. Prior to the start of this session, the candidates drew for opening statements. The opening statements are 2 minutes in length. What will happen after a minute and a half, you will see a yellow card being held up. That tells you you have 30 seconds left. Then, after those 30 seconds, you will see a red card. And the red card means, please finish your thought. So, the two candidates running for sheriff of Bergen County are Manuel Alfonso and Michael Sardino. And Mr. Sardino drew number 1 for the opening statement.
Okay, thank you very much. I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting this and for having us have an opportunity to sell you on why we should be elected this time. This is my 3rd time before this organization, so I thank you for that. The League provides a great service to voters to get to know us and what our accomplishments are. This past June, I started my 45th year in law enforcement. Every minute of that has been right here in Bergen County. From patrolman to frontline supervisor to 9 years as chief of police, and now 6 years as your sheriff. I understand law enforcement in Bergen County from the ground up and how it all works together for the best result when it comes to public safety and saving money. The years I've had as an administrator have taught me 2 guiding principles. That's teamwork and balance. That is the approach that has led to the success in the last 6 years as your sheriff. My proven track record as your sheriff, I've cut overtime 40% from the prior sheriff, even with lower staffing, doing more with less, even small civilian staff. Saved over $5 million for taxpayers. Increased public safety in each Bergen County town by realigning county police to increase response times and decrease costs. We've developed a new strategic plan going forward. This plan will focus on furthering the cost savings from the realignment, working with partners like the prosecutor's office to come up with new solutions for the heroin epidemic. Focus on treatment after arrests are made to Bergen Regional for detox. This complements the detox unit already in the jail, which has received praise from former inmates. Now working with the Prosecutor's Office Narcotics Task Force to partner together for increased in-school education of children on the dangers of heroin use. I thank you for coming out tonight to witness this debate. I hope I'll always have a chance to talk about the success we have had as an office and why I deserve your vote for re-election this November 8th. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Alfonso.
Thank you very much. I would also like to thank the League of Women Voters for giving me the opportunity to come and speak to you and explain the reasons why I'm running. I have been a law enforcement professional for the last 27 and a half years. I'll be starting my 28th year soon. In those 27 years, I've had the luxury of working at several different agencies. I was assigned to the FBI's Joint Terrorism Task Force for 5 years. I've been assigned to the U.S. Marshals Regional Fugitive Task Force for 2 years. I was assigned to the New Jersey Attorney General's Office Public Corruption Unit for a year. The most recent assignment I had is now the chief of one of the biggest agencies in the state with the biggest amount of law enforcement officers. I have been in that position for almost 2 years. In those 2 years, we have saved millions of dollars. We've taken the steps that were necessary to save the taxpayers millions of dollars. I have the track record to prove that I can save millions of dollars. I have been asked several times, why am I running for sheriff? What prompted me to put my hat in the arena? And I tell everybody the same answer. It's because I'm sick and tired. I'm sick and tired like most voters are. I'm sick and tired of elected officials using their positions for their own self-interest, for their own self-enrichment. I'm sick and tired of people making decisions, or elected officials making decisions because they're popular, or it's because of what the political winds want them to do. And I don't think that as the sheriff of Bergen County or as a law enforcement executive, you should be doing what's right. You should be doing what the political parties want you to do. You should be doing what's right and what's needed for the safety of the residents of Bergen County. And that's why I'm running for office.
Thank you. Before we continue to the next part, I forgot to remind people to please turn off their cell phones, which I am going to do at this time as well. The second part of this evening's program deals with the response to league-generated questions. There are 3 league questions, and the candidates will have 2.5 minutes to answer each of the questions. Mr. Saudino, you're going to go first, and the first question is, what role can the Sheriff's Department play in improving protection against homegrown terrorism?
Okay. Being a former police chief, I am still a member of the Bergen County Police Chiefs Association. Being a past president, I sit on the executive board of that association. We meet regularly with members of the FBI, NYPD, Homeland Security to discuss issues that are going on. I now oversee the bomb squad that handles all the calls for the county. They've received extensive training, and most of it's been, sadly, because of a lot of false bomb calls, actual responding to calls and doing what they do. Actually, the one time I remember, there were 9 towns targeted with schools. 24 schools in that 9-town mix received bomb scares at the same time. We were able, between our bomb squad and our K-9 units, to address every one of those schools. I reached out, and again, because of my networking ability, I reached out to the state police and Jersey City Police, and they sent some of their bomb dogs up. I'm proud to say that 24 schools, within 4 hours, every school was cleared. Some children went back to school. Some schools decided to close for the day. I'm also an intricate part in the regional SWAT team. I shared expenses with the Bergen County prosecutor to train the SWAT team. It's a regional team now. They were trained by former Navy SEALs. They've all received the same training. It's probably the finest training you could ever receive. And they actually do drills each month. They have training days each month. Although it's a scheduling nightmare, it's something that's a necessity, and we allow schedule adjustments so that there's not a cost of overtime for training, and they do train on a regular basis. I'm proud to say my son, who's a sergeant in Haworth, is a member of that SWAT team. He takes so much pride in being part of it, and he, along with the 59 others, are committed to doing a job. You know, I was at the Westfield Mall the first night that they received, there was an active shooter there, and there's a bit of chaos with all SWAT teams responding from all over. Now because they were from different agencies and with the county police who now fall under the sheriff. Now it's a regional SWAT team consisting mostly of members from the sheriff's office and the prosecutor's office. However, there are 15 towns that have officers assigned to that. And I can assure you that more organized efforts should we get a similar call like that.
Thank you. Mr. Alfonso.
Having had extensive experience in counterterrorism investigations and training, I believe the Sheriff's Department needs to play a bigger role than it's currently playing. For example, if you look at all the current and past, or most recent and past terrorist attacks, you'll see that the number one thing that was important was the time it took for the first responders to get to the scene and stop the terrorist. Time equals lives when it comes to terrorism. And the Bergen County Sheriff's Department has had very good training. However, the deployment of it, or the deployment of the team, and the deployment of their police services bureau individuals is being misutilized as we speak. What saves lives is a prompt response to the attack. And if something happens right now, the prompt response is not going to be 5 minutes, 10 minutes. It's going to be probably half an hour, 45 minutes. Another example of what I've been terming doing or making decisions based on politics and not on what's right or safe for the community is the Sheriff's Department had placed an order for some military-style vehicles. However, as a result of political wins and the fact that they did not want to approach the public and explain why they had canceled the order, they canceled it. These vehicles were the same type of vehicles that were used and saved lives during the Boston Marathon bombing. So the easy route was taken, and instead of having to go to the public and explaining to them, the reason why we need these vehicles is not because we're trying to militarize the police, it's because we're trying to save lives. But instead what was done was the easy road was taken, and they decided to say, you know what? Forget about the safety of the residents. We're going to appease our political bosses. And you can't appease political bosses when you're in charge of people's safety.
Can
Thank
I ask a question, if I may? I'm sorry. Is there time to rebut certain answers, or is that all has to be in the closing?
No, you can, if you'd like to rebut, you have 30 seconds to rebut.
Absolutely. You know, and no fault of my opponent. It's all because he's never worked a minute in Bergen County. Let's face it, if there was a situation where there was an active shooter or something here, before the SWAT team or the bomb squad would respond, the local police, they're the ones that are first on the scene within minutes, okay? Secondly, anyone who's read the papers knows I wanted the MRAP, a free vehicle from the Army surplus. It was former county executive Kathy Donovan that refused to sign off for it, okay? After she bought the Bergen County Police a similar vehicle. We have vehicles like that now. Look at what happened in San Bernardino. That vehicle saved lives.
Okay, thank you very
Thank
much. Okay. Before I ask the next question, I just want to remind the audience that the next section of the program are questions from the audience. So if the audience has any questions, they can write them down on the cards, and if you hold them up, there'll be league members going around to collect them. Question number 2, Mr. Alfonso, you will go first. And the question reads, what can the Sheriff's Department do to improve trust in law enforcement? Please explain.
Unfortunately, in today's environment, there's an unjustified mistrust in law enforcement. And that's mostly because people's interaction with law enforcement is always as a result of an incident, so it's incident-driven. So us in the law enforcement profession have to do a better job at interacting with the community during non-incident times. An example of that, I believe highly in community policing. However, the Bergen County Sheriff's Department would not really be affected by that because most of what they do is patrol. The Bureau of Police Services do mostly patrols of county roads. One thing I would do is make their presence on these county roads more prevalent than what they are now. There's been a drastic reduction in the amount of patrols taking place in our county, which is at the worst possible time, especially with a heroin epidemic and the amount of heroin that's being transported into our county from Passaic County. And that's not me saying it, that's all the Bergen County residents I've spoken to have said it. So the most important thing is to increase our presence among the residents, let them know that we're out there working, and additionally assign them to areas that we know are high traffic or high drug known areas that lead into the county. A perfect example of the reduction of patrols is this year the Bureau of Police Services has, and this is based on an article written in the Record, has written $2 million less in tickets. That's a direct correlation to the amount of patrols that are taking place. If you're writing $2 million less of tickets, that means you're doing a significant amount of less patrolling than what you should be doing.
Thank you. Mr. Sodino.
Yes. There's far more to being the sheriff than just preventing laws and keeping peace. We have a community outreach division that there are 2 full-time people in it and sometimes a third. And they are extremely busy giving seminars on identity theft and cybersecurity. And our HIT team, where an inmate will go to a school and speak about his mistakes in life and try to teach the children, don't be like me, correct yourself, don't take the wrong path like drugs. Also, we are such a diverse county. I have learned and made friends and been honored by the Muslim community, the Korean community, the Jewish community. It goes so much further than just enforcing the law. It goes to do with outreach. And I myself, at my own expense, I traveled to South Korea last year to learn, because we have an ever-growing Korean-American population, to learn more of their traditions. I met with police in South Korea and learned that we have similar problems. Years ago, I traveled to Turkey at my expense. I learned more of the Muslim community because we do have a growing Muslim American community here. They can't thank me enough that I actually took the time to research and find out more of their customs. Ramadan, I must go to a dozen Ramadan dinners. I've even honored their Ramadan and fasted 1 or 2 nights, which is not an easy thing. These folks, I give them credit, but I've earned their respect, that empathy. I put myself in their place. As far as summonses and money, I'm not concerned about money. I'm concerned about public safety. To me, it's not about money, what the court should bring in financially. We bring in tons of money in other aspects. So I'm not concerned about how much money is brought in. I could tell you, for a short time, there was a drop of summonses with the Bureau of Police Services. I could tell you to date, we will probably go over what their amount was the last year they were in existence before falling under the sheriff. Those numbers have been increasing because we've addressed certain deficiencies that needed to be addressed.
Can I respond to that?
Yes, 30 seconds.
I just want to clarify the fact that I'm not saying that we should be issuing summonses to raise money. There's a lot of other steps that you've failed to take that could be done to curtail the expenditures that are out of control in your department. What I'm saying is a direct correlation between patrols and summonses. Summonses are down, patrols are down. Second, you talk about diversity and you speak about the fact that you support diversity. You should, you're the sheriff. Every law enforcement official should. However, you look at your upper chain of command and you have the least diversity of any department that I know of. So if you challenge diversity, if you stand for it, you're not proving it or showing it based on your upper echelon.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Next question. And Mr. Sodino, you're going to be responding first, and that is, what is the biggest issue facing the Sheriff's Department today?
Of course, like every police department in this county, in this country, is the heroin epidemic. What Mr. Alfonso does not know is that each year there is what they call the Law Services Review Board. It's a mandatory meeting that was given out by the Attorney General's office, and it mandates the prosecutor in each county to have a meeting with all the larger department heads, state police, transit, sheriff's department, president of the Chiefs Association, one or two of the larger towns in Bergen County. And their job core functions are laid out. One of the core functions of the prosecutor's office is a narcotics task force. This review board is so that there's not duplication of police services and tax dollars being wasted in one specific area. I am proud, though, that I have 3 officers that have been full-time assigned for years, the 6 years I've been in office, as undercover narcotics agents. And they work with the prosecutor's office, were involved when the officer got shot at the Garfield on a buy that went bad. So I do address the heroin problem. I've partnered with the prosecutor that it's not about arrests today. It's not about numbers of how many we could put in jail. Today it's about how do we get these people help, because this is an addiction. You know, years ago, I think we looked at drug dealers and drug users as just, a bad seed in society. Today, that's not the case. We've had too many deaths in this county, in the state. Just recently, the prosecutor and I partnered. We went out and arrested 40 people, users of heroin. We were able to offer them beds at Bergen Region Medical if we would take them right from that scene to the hospital to get into a detox and a drug rehab program. I'm proud to say there were 12 beds available, 12 people went. There was no deal made. They still had to answer to their crime. One other one went to the jail because she had a warrant on her. However, at the jail, I'm proud, we do have a detox and a drug rehab program for both men and women. Secondly, there's a new building being built next to the Justice Center. I am tasked not only to continue the security in the courthouse, but now to provide security for the people coming in and out of a whole new building. We have a plan in place. We've met several times. Police work is a balance. The need for this and that changes on a daily basis. We need to be, and I know we've been, able to reach that balance. Talk about my higher echelon. I brought in undersheriffs that with myself have over 200 years of police service, all in this county. My opponent has never worked 5 minutes in this county.
Okay, thank you very much, thank you. Mr. Alfonso, do you want me to repeat the question?
I can rebut and then answer my question.
Well, you have 2.5 minutes to answer
All
the
right,
question.
well,
And you
I'll add
can
it all
use
in.
rebuttal
I'd just like to
time.
point out, I have worked in this county. I've worked all over the state. I've had exposure to every single corner of this state. In fact, I've worked all over this country. I've worked on units that did cases that were international. I've worked all over the world. So the fact that I haven't worked in this county doesn't mean that I don't know what police work is like. Second, in reference to the hardest challenge that the Sheriff's Department is facing, safety is the Sheriff's Department's #1 concern. That's their #1 job. And doing it correctly, adequately, and within a realistic budget is the biggest challenge. The current sheriff says that he's lowered the amount of overtime that's been paid to the lowest point. I don't know what numbers he's using, but in 4 years, he paid $2.4 million in overtime. I come from a department where we drastically cut overtime, and we took the steps necessary to reduce the amount of overtime. The current jail holds over 1,100 inmates, yet they have a little over 800 inmates, yet every single housing unit is open. The supposed response to that is, well, we had different classifications. We can't put people in the same wings. Guess what? The state has several different classifications too. The only difference is we did the right thing. We made up the correct departmental procedures, and we were able to close down a bunch of wings the way that the county should be doing. Once you close down those wings, you have all these extra bodies to fill in for that overtime. A second thing is, the current sheriff has an excess of 22, I believe it's 24 approximately, what they call 15%ers. There's absolutely no need for a department to have 24 15%ers. 15%ers means that each sheriff can appoint 15% of their workforce. That has become a political patronage mill. That is how our current sheriffs pay off their political favors. There's no need for that. As sheriff, the first thing I would do is review every single one of those appointments, and I would reduce it to the bare minimum. That's costing us millions of dollars. Once again, an expense to enrich the pockets of their friends, of their political cronies, at our expense.
Can I rebut, please?
Yes, 30 seconds.
Again, not working enough time in Bergen County and knowing the issues. First of all, I welcome to look at the record. I was given the Taxpayers Advocate Award by both a Republican and Democratic freeholder board, recognizing my efforts for savings. The State Comptroller's Office, these are proven facts. An article in the Star-Ledger, the State Comptroller's Office did a survey of all jails across this state. We are the role model in Bergen County for keeping overtime down. They referred to our jail. We are the third lowest in the state. However, the two that are lower than us, you could take both of those jails and stick them in our jail. So these aren't things I've made up. These are actual, and I have documents to prove the letter from the State Comptroller's Office recognizing our efforts and pointing right out that we are the role model for keeping overtime down.
Thank you.
Can I have a rebuttal of that?
No, because you rebutted from his first thing. That's how it works.
Thank you.
Okay. The next portion of the program deals with the questions that have been generated from the audience. For these questions, the candidates will have 2 minutes to respond. Okay, and the first question is to Mr. Alfonso, but both candidates can respond to the question. The question reads, how would you maintain and carry on the foundation that Sheriff Saudino has built?
Gee, I wonder who asked that question. There's certain things that I would keep. I believe that he's right when it comes to having to treat individuals with addiction. I've been in the business for 28 years, and I know what treating an addiction or blocking them up and putting them in a jail with a bunch of criminals can lead to. You're just creating another criminal. So I believe that that was something that should have been done, and it was done. However, I would change quite a bit of other things. First of all, I would depoliticize the Sheriff's Department. There's no reason for a law enforcement entity to allow politics to interfere with the way it's run. Second, I would appoint individuals based on who they are, not on who they know. They would get jobs. I would attempt to make it as diverse as possible, unlike what it is now. And they would get jobs based on their qualifications, not based on the political powers telling me what to do. Another thing I would do is I would take serious steps to curtail the overtime in the institution. I would consolidate wings. I would get rid of duplicate services, and I would increase a significant amount of patrols in the areas that lead to those known drug-infested areas.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Saudino.
Once again, my opponent has been misguided or told things that just aren't accurate. First, sheriff's investigators, let's make it clear, this is not in addition to your department. This is part of your full-time employees. They're one of. They get paid the same as anyone else, and it's the only way. There's two ways to hire police officers in Bergen County. One is through a chief's test, where each individual town can set a standard on how they want to hire. The other is civil service. We are a civil service entity. We are bound by a list. We cannot be choosing, I want this guy, I want that guy. We're bound by a list, but fortunately, veterans go to the top. And we've hired a slew of veterans who've made us proud, come out 1 and 2 in the academy, class after class. However, to bring diversity to the department when you're bound by civil service, that's where these sheriff's investigators come in. And let me just explain. I have investigators that I have hired who speak Albanian, Arabic, Farsi, Gujarati, Korean, and Turkish. How's that for some diversity, folks? I have hired the first and only Korean-American female officer in all of Bergen County, Samantha O. She does a great job. He wants to get rid of the 15%ers. How do you bring diversity? The other way I've brought diversity to the department is Newark and Patterson years ago had major layoffs. They go on what is called a rice bill. The rice bill allows you to hire superseding civil service. I hired several African-American and Latino men and women. Now, some of them went back when they rehired in those two cities. However, we retained some. That's given us more diversity to our department. I venture, we live in the most diverse county in the state.
Okay, thank you. Do you want to rebut?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, that's what I thought. 30 seconds.
Like all other major modernized law enforcement entities, the way you increase diversity is not by giving political jobs away. The way you increase diversity is by going into those communities and promoting your job and offering the opportunity for them to know that, hey, there's tests coming up, please apply, not by going into your political boss's office and getting a resume and being told this is the sheriff's investigator you got to hire. Every other modern organization, law enforcement organization that I've worked for, and they're significantly bigger than yours, has succeeded at doing it, and Bergen County hasn't succeeded at doing it because they haven't taken the correct steps to do
Okay,
it.
thank you very much. No. Okay, the next question is for you, Mr. Saudino, and it's several questions all in one, and it states, since the county police was integrated into the sheriff's office, has this change improved services for Bergen County? And if so, how? Has the public safety budget been reduced? Has Bergen County lost any services because of combining the two?
Yes. To the contrary of cutting services, services have been enhanced. The chiefs of police in this county know, they call, they now get a response quicker, and a dog, a canine, should they need it, quicker. This is why, just this week, I received the endorsement of all the police chiefs in Bergen County. I've also received the endorsement of the Bergen County PBA Conference, which is all the PBAs in this county. I also received, and my opponent is of a Latino nature, the Latino Officers Association of the state of New Jersey have endorsed me as their candidate because they know my record is proven. My folks know at work when a town calls and needs something, get it done. And I welcome anyone in this audience to check with your local police chief and see if what I'm saying is not accurate. Services have been enhanced over time. The first year of the Bureau of Police Services, county police under my realm, I cut their budget by over a third, the first year. And we're still learning of ways to cut overtime. My track record is clear. When I was chief of police in Emerson, I set record lows for overtime. I've done it as sheriff with the sheriff's office, and since taking over the Bureau of Police Services, I've done it with them.
Mr. Alfonso.
Thank you.
You-
First of all-
You get to answer the question, so you have a full 2 minutes.
Repeat the question then, I'm sorry.
Okay. The question is, since the county police was integrated into the sheriff's office, has this change improved services for Bergen County? And if so, how? Has the public safety budget been reduced? And has Bergen County lost any services because of combining the two?
I believe Bergen County has lost services because of combining the two. And all you have to do is speak to any Bergen County resident. They'll tell you they barely ever see Bergen County sheriff's officers or Bureau of Police Services patrolling. In fact, I live in Bergen County, and I'm up and down Bergen County most of the time, and I've never seen less. In reference to whether it saved any money, I don't think so, absolutely not. This county now is in a battle, a legal battle with the union of the Bureau of Police Services because they have a clause in their contract which states that if they merge, they get a 10% raise. Guess who's going to have to pay for that? Us, the Bergen County residents. In reference to him saving money or Bergen County merger saving money, there hasn't been any money saved at all. His budget has gone up in 4 years, $6 million. Where's your savings? They just purchased 11 cruisers or 11 SUVs out of the county budget because it's 11 SUVs in his own Tahoe, totaling almost 400-something thousand, out of the county budget, and they didn't have to pay for it out of the expense budget of the sheriff's office. So all they're doing now is moving money around to try to show that they're saving money, but in essence, they've just borrowed money, bonded money to buy cars that in the past they weren't able to. It's all a smoke and mirrors game. And unfortunately, unless you get deep into the weeds, you won't see this. How can you claim you saved money when you have $6 million in increase in your budget? Where have you saved the money?
I can rebut.
30 seconds.
My first year in office, I cut $1.7 million from the actual budget of the prior sheriff. Also $750,000 in overtime. Each year, we bring in, through ICE detainees that we have at our jail, through civil process and sadly, through forfeiture funding that banks when forfeitures go through. And every year, you won't see it in my budget because the money goes directly to Bergen County Treasury. However, every year, operationally, since I've been the sheriff, the Bergen County Sheriff's Office has run at no cost to the taxpayers operationally, salary and wages.
Thank you, thank you. Okay.
I have 30, oh, that was 30 seconds.
That was 30 seconds,
Okay,
yes.
thank you.
Okay. The next question is directed to Mr. Alfonso, and there are two questions that are quite similar, so I'll read them both to you. One asks, with what department are you presently affiliated? And the other one asks, have you ever served as a municipal police officer?
I am currently the chief of the New Jersey Department of Corrections Special Investigations Division, and I have never served as a municipal police officer.
I'm just curious if his chief's title is a title or is it an appointment? I don't know.
Okay, well, he can't answer that question because the
Okay.
questions only come from me.
Yes.
We don't have cross questions.
Well, my credentials speak for themselves. I'm the current sheriff, have been for 6 years. Prior to that, I was a chief of police for 9 years in the borough of Emerson, with a total of 38 years in that department altogether. So once again, I talk about, I'm in my 45th year of law enforcement. There's nothing in this county about law enforcement that I don't know about, and I don't say that to be arrogant. I say that to be confident.
Okay. Are there any more questions? I have one other question up here. I was going to save this one for the end. All right. Okay. Okay, next question. Mr. Saudino, you get to answer this first, and the question reads, have you found evidence of unequal treatment of jail inmates based on race?
No, I have not. And getting to that also about the space in the jail. Yes, there's always 200 to 300 beds available. Coming from a correctional facility, I would think that he would know better that classifications in a jail, in a correctional facility, change on a daily basis, depending upon the behavior of the inmates. There are classifications. It's important to keep them separate. Our ICE detainees, we need to keep separate. We have drug rehab programs for both men and women in the jail. When there are allegations, should there be allegations of a correction officer abusing someone, whether physically or because of racial issues, believe me, it's investigated. We have cameras that cover every square inch of our facility. The cameras don't lie, and most of the times the officers are exonerated. But when they're not, the proper disciplinary action is taken on.
All I want to point
Alfonso.
out is there are different classifications. Believe me, I know. And believe me, I work in a place that has a lot more people and a lot more different classifications than the current jail does. The difference is we know we have people who have been doing it for years and are experts, and they're able to we have hundreds, if not thousands, of empty beds because we were able to consolidate them the correct way. They don't interact with each other. The only difference is we have proven professional managers who know what they're doing.
Can I rebut that?
Yes, 30
To my
seconds.
correction officers in the audience, I apologize to you for what this man just said, because each and every one of you are professionals and do your job great, all right? Let there be no mistake about it, and you're very insulting to even accuse that my men are not as good as the men you work with.
The only thing I'd like to say is I believe the correction officers in Bergen County are the best correction officers
just
in the
say
state.
that.
I'm not accusing you guys of not managing. I think you guys do a great job. Unfortunately, your leaders are the ones I'm accusing of mismanagement. I have not accused any correction officer, any sheriff's officer, or any police officer in Bergen County of doing a poor job. I think you guys are doing a great job based on the fact that you have some of the poorest leadership I have ever seen.
Okay, thank you. Next question. Okay, Mr. Alfonso, you get to answer this first. What can the Sheriff's Department do to improve community relations, for example, race relations, both on the county and local levels?
Basically a similar answer I gave before. The sheriff's, all law enforcement agencies, including the Sheriff's Department, have to make an effort to interact with the community when it's not incident-driven. So there are certain programs that the Sheriff's Department has that possibly could be expanded or run a little differently. But what we need to do as a law enforcement community is interact with the community on a regular basis when it's not incident-driven. They need to see us when we're not there to give them a ticket, we're not there to lock them up, we're not there to break up a domestic. We're there just walking around, getting to know the community. The biggest issue is the community realizing that we're not there only to hurt them, or only to arrest them, or only to give them tickets, but we're there for, when I was growing up, I grew up in an inner city, which probably is one of the hardest possible places to work as a police officer, but they had community policing. The cop who walked my beat every time, every day, I knew on a first-name basis. And that's what we've gotten away from, and that's what we have to get back to.
Okay, thank you,
Very
Mr. Savdino.
ironic question, seeing how Tuesday I sat at a seminar addressing 21st century policing. Yes, even as the sheriff, I go to increase my training. And there are other officers there that will bring back that training. You may have seen in today's record, just yesterday I sat on a panel at Bergen Community College along with the prosecutor, Reverend Jackson from the Mount Olive Baptist Church, and Dana Card, I'm forgetting her last name again, but she's the principal in Cliffside Park and also a councilwoman. And yes, there was no incident that happened. We got together to speak about what we need to do to improve our relations with all the communities. And this wasn't the first time. The prosecutor has had several gatherings of clergy people. I've attended every one of those sessions. We actually took some clergy members to the police academy. One of the reverends said, why when police shoot, do they have to shoot so many times? We put that reverend on a simulator machine that we have at the Bergen County Police Academy, and guess what? The bad guy came out, and he readily admits he shot about 8 or 10 times and only hit him once. And he says, I have a whole new perspective. So this is the thing, educating one another of what our concerns are, about what our jobs are. And it's a two-way street. The police have a difficult job, and I know with our guys, to go out and shake hands with everyone on the street, we're a county agency. It's a little more different than when I was a chief in Emerson. When I was a chief in Emerson, my department was a community policing-oriented department. They knew everybody in the town. You can give it an address, they knew whose house it was. Big part of policing today, I agree. But as large as the sheriff's department is, from myself on down, we train, we have seminars, and we're out there outreach meeting with the religious groups, and again, I reiterate, with the Korean Americans, the Muslims, the Jewish community, the African American, the Latino communities.
Okay. Last question. If elected or re-elected, what 3 goals would you like to achieve during the next 3 years? And Mr. Savdino, you go first.
Okay. First and foremost, I would like to see more initiatives on the heroin epidemic. And again, not about arresting people, about getting help for these people, because again, it's an addiction. It's an addiction. It's time, we've become more creative. There was a time the former prosecutor said, parents, turn your children in and we will not charge them. We will get them help. Worked a little bit, so this prosecutor came up with the idea, let's drive them right to rehab. We need our legislators in the state to bring more funding for rehabs and detox centers. A goal, and it's always been one of my goals, if I can cut overtime any further or my budget any further, the citizens of this county, I believe, know that I will do that. I vow to do that. I've run twice. I made promises my first term, I kept those promises. I made promises my second term to unite law enforcement. This realignment of the Bergen County Police is something that's been talked about for 50 years in this county. I am proud to be the sheriff that is getting it done. My opponent says he's talked to people on the street. There's been no more important issue on the street than let's consolidate police services and not saving money. We saved $3 million the first year. Let's face it, they started with about 98 officers. We deem at the end of the day, we only need 49. You do the math, 49 as opposed to 98 with salaries, benefits, and things of such. Third, I would like to see us establish more programs, even in the jail, maybe increase our detox program, where maybe the hospitals don't have the room, but for the people incarcerated, we can give them more help. I've been a proponent. I visit those men and women on a weekly basis, just to say, keep up the good work, to encourage them, do a good job. And once again, To my correction officers here, you do a fine job in doing that, running that facility, and maintaining those programs. To my sheriff's officers out there, I thank you, because you're all professional, all right? From the chief on down to the captains, the warden on down from the captains at the jail, my undersheriffs, keep up the good work, because we are doing good things for Bergen County
Thank you
residents.
very much. Mr. Alfonso.
Thank you. The three biggest things I would like to do are very similar to what the sheriff wants to do. The only difference is he's been there 6 years, and he hasn't done it yet. The first thing I would like to do is increase the amount of treatment we have for individuals who have a substance abuse problem. Right now, the state has taken some serious initiative towards this, and I think the county commendably has taken some also, but it needs to increase. The epidemic is out of control. And unless you visit a hospital room on a weekend or you're riding along in an ambulance, and the amount of times they're giving people Narcan, it's out of control. It's an issue that has to be addressed, but not addressed via the legal system. It has to be addressed via the treatment. Second, the other issue I would address is the budget that's out of control. I would take serious steps for reducing the budget. You can't sit here and say you've saved money when your budget has gone up $6 million in 4 years. How are you saving money? How do you save that money? By taking the necessary steps, not the steps the politicians want you to take. Another step you can take, reduce the amount of your 15%ers. There's an excuse. Every sheriff you ask will come up with an excuse. It's an outdated, antiquated system. There's no longer need for, that's millions of dollars of taxpayer money going out to political cronies. It's got to stop. Third, I would save the taxpayers of New Jersey money by not double dipping. Sheriff Saldino, all his undersheriffs, his new public information officer are all double dippers, meaning they collect a salary and a pension at the same time. Mr. Saldino happens to be the biggest double dipper in the state. I don't understand how you can take on a job to serve your community and become a rich man.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
That brings us to our closing statements. Each candidate gets 3 minutes to make a closing statement, and they are going in the opposite order of the opening statements. So, Mr. Alfonso, you go first.
Thank you. First, I'd like to thank everybody once again for giving me the opportunity to speak with you. As you can see, I've told you about my qualifications and about my plans. I'm doing this. I've never been a political person. I've never aspired for political office. I'm doing this because I'm sick and tired. I'm sick and tired of being ripped off. I'm sick and tired of working hard, seeing my family members working hard, seeing the residents of Bergen County working hard, and being taxed to death, while those sitting in elected offices reaping all the rewards. It's got to stop. It can't continue. And the only way we can stop it is by voting them out of office. You can sit here and listen to people give you numbers, I've saved this, I've saved that. The bottom line is math. When your budget has gone up $6 million, you haven't saved anything. What have you saved? When you've made $1.8 million in 6 years, double dipping, whose interest do you have at heart? Who did you choose to serve? Your own personal interest or the interest of the people who voted you into office? 2 weeks before you have to announce who you're going to run for, you switch parties. Why did you switch parties? You have to start looking at the actions of the people you voted into office and seeing whether those actions are benefiting you or benefiting themselves. And until we, as voters, start realizing that the only way it's going to change is by electing people who actually want to do what's right and save you money, and not those people who throw around these numbers, but yet at the end, the math is the math. You still didn't really save anything, then it's going to continue. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Saldino.
Yes, the math is the math. And he still has a misconception of what investigators are, because, and he said 22, there are 18 out of 530-something sworn officers in the Sheriff's Department, 18. And again, used for diversity. He talks about political cronyism. Well, I was a member of his party when I hired those, so where's is the cronyism on your part? You talk about fudging numbers. When I got the Taxpayers Advocate Award, one of your running mates, a freeholder, I won't mention her name, she voted to give me that award. So I must have been doing something right. Those things don't lie. The Advocates Award and also the State Comptroller's Award. They're not going to do things to help Mike Sordino or any sheriff for that matter if the facts and figures weren't what they were. It's proven, it's been said, I take pride in that. Again, I have respect for my running mate. He's involved in law enforcement. He's a brother officer in my eyes, and I have respect for him as I do all my brother officers. However, ladies and gentlemen, I think the credentials here are clear on who can serve the residents of this county better, who has spent almost 45 years of his life in this county. And come November 8th, one of us will be elected as sheriff. Guess what? No matter which one of us it is, we're going to collect a $138,000 salary, okay? So regardless of what he talks about with double dipping and all, the salary is the salary regardless of who wins this election, okay? I don't know what his experience, I'm not saying he doesn't, he says he does, but it has to be minimal, and it has to be nowhere near the comparison what I've experienced, again, from a patrolman all the way up to chief of police, 38 years in a small department, the last 6 years as sheriff. Figures don't lie. I welcome the audience. Please look at the Star-Ledger article about how our jail was the role model for decreasing overtime. Look at last year, the first year of the Bureau of Police Services under my realm and the realm of my command staff, who he talks about is, you talk about what they make and what they do. You think I do and make the savings alone? No, we're a team. We're all part of a team. And they're 200 years of experience, besides my captains and warden and chief, bring a lot to the table. A lot of experience, a lot of years of knowledge, and it's worked well for the people of this county. I thank you again, the League, for conducting this. I seek your vote. You have my word, I will continue to cut costs where I can without ever, and I always say this, without ever compromising law or public safety. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think we should give a round of applause to our candidates. A couple of announcements. On Thursday, October 13th, right here at Bergen County Technical High School, there will be a candidates forum for the Bergen County freeholders. Also, on Wednesday, October 19th at 7:30 at the Englewood Public Safety Building in Englewood, there will be a candidates forum sponsored by the League for the Congressional District Number 9. I also would like to mention that the League of Women Voters of Bergen County, as well as the State League of Women Voters, is involved in vote411.org. If you go onto that website, you will get step-by-step election information, everything you need. All the candidates that are running in on the county level have been asked to participate, and so you can read other things that they have to say about themselves. Thank you very much for coming, and remember to vote on November 8th. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.